Have you ever been barred from a family event because your bank account didn't have enough zeros? That was me, standing outside my own sister's brand new mansion while her security guard told me my name wasn't on the guest list. My own sister Chloe had literally crossed my name off with a red pen because she was worried my average look would ruin the aesthetic of her high society housewarming party. It's a different kind of pain when the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally treat you like an embarrassment. I remember sitting in my 10-year-old sedan, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white, tears blurring the headlights of the luxury SUVs driving past me. But looking back, that humiliating night was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because what Chloe didn't realize was that while she was busy building a life out of glass, I was busy learning how to build one out of stone. And years later, the universe would bring her right to my doorstep not to visit, but to beg. Let's go back to how this all started, because honestly, our lives couldn't have been more different. My sister Chloe and I grew up in a very normal, middle-class home. But the moment Chloe went to college, she made it her life's mission to escape normalcy. She was beautiful, charismatic, and obsessed with status. She eventually met Richard, a flashy hedge fund manager who loved showing off his wealth just as much as she did. Within a year, they were married. Suddenly, Chloe was flying to Paris for weekend shopping trips, posting photos from private yachts, and speaking in this weird, whispery voice like she was royalty. I, on the other hand, chose a very different path. I didn't marry rich. I worked a standard corporate job, saved every single dollar I could, and spent my weekends working on a dream. I wanted to start a boutique digital marketing and consulting firm. It was messy. I'm talking late nights, cold coffee, crying over tax forms, and wondering if I was completely out of my mind. There were times I couldn't even afford to order takeout, let alone buy a designer bag. Whenever we had family dinners, Chloe made sure to remind me of where I stood. She'd look at my simple clothes, sigh dramatically, and say things like, "Oh, Clara, it's so sweet that you're trying." But let's be honest, some people are just meant for the grind, and others are meant for the finer things. I used to let those comments slide. I figured, she's my sister, maybe she's just thoughtless. But then came the housewarming party. They had just purchased a $7 million estate in the most exclusive gated community in the city. Everyone in the family was invited, our cousins, our aunts, even our distant second cousins. I bought a nice, simple dress, spent an hour doing my hair, and drove over, excited to celebrate her success. But when I reached the security gate, the guard stopped me. He checked his clipboard, looked at my own sedan, and shook his head. "Sorry, ma'am, you're not on the list." I figured it was just a mistake, so I called Chloe. She answered on the third ring, the sound of loud music and clinking glasses echoing in the background. "Hey, Chloe, I'm stuck at the gate." "The guard says I'm not on the list," I said, chuckling, expecting her to clear it up. There was a long pause on the line. "Yeah, Clara, about that," Chloe said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Look, Richard's boss is here tonight. Some really high-profile clients are here too, honestly. Your car and, well, your general vibe, it just doesn't really fit the crowd we're trying to impress tonight. I'm sure you understand. We can do lunch next week, just the two of us, okay?" Before I could even process what she was saying, the line went dead. The security guard gave me a sympathetic look. He didn't even have to say anything. I slowly backed my car out of the driveway, feeling a mixture of intense shame and burning anger. On that drive home, something shifted inside me. I realized that crying wasn't going to change my reality. If my sister wanted to play the status game, I was going to stop playing entirely. I was going to focus on my business, put my head down, and build something so massive that no one could ever lock me out of a gate again. And that's exactly what I did. Over the next 5 years, I worked like my life depended on it, because it did. My small consulting firm, which started in my spare bedroom, began to grow. We landed 1 local client, then 3, then 10. I focused on delivering actual value, treating my employees like family, and keeping my overhead low. Eventually, we transitioned into high-end corporate restructuring. We helped struggling companies completely rebuild their business models. We were making millions, but I didn't buy a mansion. I didn't buy a fleet of sports cars. I upgraded to a nice, comfortable home, bought a reliable SUV, and reinvested almost all of my profits back into the company. Real wealth, I realized, is quiet. It doesn't need to post on social media to feel validated. During those 5 years, my relationship with Chloe completely faded. We didn't talk. Our parents tried to intervene, but I kept my distance. I heard through the grapevine that Chloe's social media feed was as flashy as ever, filled with five-star hotels and expensive jewelry. But here's the thing about castles built on sand eventually. The tide comes in. One morning, about 6 years after the housewarming incident, I was sitting in my executive office, sipping my coffee. My assistant Sarah walked in with a stack of resumes. We were looking to hire a senior operations manager for our new division, a position that paid a very generous six-figure salary. We have some solid candidates, Sarah said, placing the folder on my desk. But there's one applicant who seems incredibly overqualified on paper, though her recent employment history has a massive gap. She actually requested an urgent interview, saying she's willing to take any position available. I opened the folder, and my heart stopped. It was Chloe. I stared at the name for a long time. I checked her address on the resume. It wasn't the $7 million mansion anymore. It was a cheap apartment on the edge of the city. I picked up my phone and called my mom. It didn't take long to get the full story. Apparently, Richard's hedge fund had collapsed a year ago after some highly illegal and incredibly risky investments. The government seized almost all of their assets. The mansion, the luxury cars, the designer clothes, all gone. Richard had fled the country to avoid legal prosecution, leaving Chloe with nothing but a pile of debt and a tarnished reputation. She had spent the last 9 months trying to find a job, but because of her association with Richard's scandal and her lack of actual working experience over the last decade, nobody would hire her. She was desperate, and she had no idea that Vanguard Consulting Group was owned by the sister she had locked out of her gate. "Sarah," I said to my assistant, my voice completely calm. "Bring her in for the interview. I'll conduct this one personally." On the day of the interview, I sat in my office with my chair turned toward the window, looking out at the city skyline. I heard the door open, and Sarah escorted Chloe in. "Please, have a seat," Sarah said, before quietly exiting the room. I heard the rustle of Chloe's coat as she sat down in the leather chair opposite my desk. I could hear her breathing. It was shallow, nervous. "Thank you so much for seeing me," Chloe said, her voice shaking slightly. "I know my resume has a gap, but I am incredibly motivated, and I am willing to start from the absolute bottom." If I slowly spun my chair around to face her. The words died in her throat. She stared at me, her mouth slightly open, her face draining of all color. She looked at my sharp corporate suit, the elegant office, and the gold nameplate on my desk that read, "Clara Carter, founder and CEO." "Clara?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. You own this company?" "I do," I said softly, closing her folder. "It's been a while, Chloe." She sat there in absolute silence for what felt like an eternity. I could see the puzzle pieces clicking together in her mind. The realization of who I was, what I had built, and how she had treated me. She looked down at her lap, her shoulders trembling, and then she began to cry. But these weren't the tears of the arrogant sister I used to know. This was a woman who was completely broken by life. "I'm sorry," she sobbed, not looking up. "I'm so sorry, Clara. If you want me to leave, I'll leave. I know I don't deserve to be here. I know what I did to you was unforgivable." I sat there, watching her. Part of me, the hurt, 20-something girl who had been left outside in the cold, wanted to tell her to get out. It would have been so easy to say, "Sorry, your vibe doesn't really fit our corporate aesthetic." It would have been the ultimate revenge. But as I looked at my sister, I didn't feel anger. I just felt a deep, profound sense of empathy. I realized that if I treated her the way she treated me, I would be no different than she was. True status isn't about having the power to shut people out. It's about having the strength to pull them up, even when they don't deserve it. I reached across the desk and handed her a tissue. "I'm not going to give you the operations manager job, Chloe," I said gently. "You don't have the experience for it, and it wouldn't be fair to the other candidates who worked years for it." She nodded quickly, wiping her eyes. "I understand. I'm sorry for wasting your time. But," I continued, "we are looking for an assistant coordinator in our logistics department. It's an entry-level position, the pay is modest, the hours are long, and you will report to a manager who is 10 years younger than you. If you work hard, keep your head down, and prove that you are committed, you will have a future here." Chloe looked up at me, her eyes red, but filled with a sudden desperate spark of hope. You would really hire me? She asked, her voice cracking. I'm hiring a qualified applicant who needs a second chance, I said, offering her a small, genuine smile. But let's be clear, this is a professional environment. Out there, we are sisters. In here, I am your CEO. Can you handle that? Yes, she said, nodding vigorously as she shook my hand. Yes, Clara, I won't let you down. I swear. And she didn't. Over the next 2 years, Chloe worked harder than anyone else in that department. She arrived early, stayed late, and never once complained about her tasks. The flashy, arrogant sister was gone, replaced by a grounded, hard-working woman who finally understood the value of earning your own way. We slowly rebuilt our relationship outside of work. It's not perfect, but it's real. No mansions, no yachts, no fake social media posts, just 2 sisters having Sunday dinner, talking about life. Life has a very funny way of leveling the playing field. The people who are at the top today might be at the bottom tomorrow, and the people you look down on might just be the ones holding the key to your survival. So, let me ask you this, if you were in my shoes, would you have given your sister the job, or would you have left her outside the gate? Let me know in the comments below. If this story reminded you of the power of humility and second chances, hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more stories just like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.